board meeting for Washington Township at 6 p.m. We are going to start this meeting the way we start all meetings with the Pledge of Allegiance. To the flag. One nation, God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First on our agenda this evening is the school spotlight. And today we are spotlighting Greenbrier Elementary. Uh-oh. Like another turn up through. Yes. So, Mr. DeCotton.
And our little Grizzlies here.
Glad to see our mascot could make it.
Yes.
Awesome. All right. Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Woodson. Today, we're here to highlight, in my opinion, the greatest elementary school in Washington Township. Greenbrier Elementary has been around since 1968. And earlier this year, we did hold our rededication ceremony with amazing community support. And I don't know that we can say that about a lot of other forms of public schools, but we've been around for a minute. So here's some points of pride that I would like to share with everybody. Oh, hold on a second, though. Okay. All right, here we go. So, points of pride. At Greenbrier, our staff is solution-oriented. We are approachable and friendly and create a true family where every single staff member does have a value. We are all in for being there for our students. We have a saying at the school, if you're going to be a bear, be a grizzly. And our students show how proud they are of being a grizzly every single day. We offer a wealth of activities for students to participate in: student ambassadors, robotics, run club, math bowl, wilderness club, junior librarians. And how could I not highlight our winter concert and just recently our Black History concert, where every student has a moment to shine. It is truly an amazing event. We have fifth graders that give up recess time to help our younger students in the classes and classrooms, and they do model the Grizzly way of being respectful, being responsible, and being safe. And I say this often, that our community is our strength, and we have an amazing community. Our PTO is very well attended, and they do bring in a very diverse group of our stakeholders. Our PTO does an amazing job bringing in speakers to share out all the great things happening in Washington Township. And I can't say enough about our relationship with area businesses and churches. I've come to realize that once you are a Grizzly, and for some people, Gophers, you're always a Grizzly. So we'll go to some equitable achievements. So we found, as we were looking through some stuff here, that with our ENL students, our level 3 students who are considered developing, they hit 67% of their growth targets in math and 40% of their growth targets in reading. 61% of our general education students hit their growth targets in math. 45% of our first graders hit their growth targets in reading. Students of color had 13-point percentile increase in math and increase in math in third grade, and students of color had a 9-point percentile increase in growth in reading, which I think speaks to the strong academics that we're putting together at Greenbrier. As we look at continued growth, we're going to focus on our Tier 1 instruction in all of our classrooms, as it does build that strong foundation that we need to continue to build upon. Intentional small groups with fidelity and progress monitoring. We are implementing responsive classroom techniques to create structure in the classrooms, and we do continue to see a decrease in disruptive behavior in the classroom. Some promising practices that we have really wanted to celebrate is our weekly PLCs. We hold them every Tuesday after school. Everyone participates in it. It's just been really, it's been amazing just to see the staff grow through that process this school year. Our flexible grouping based off our PLC data that the teachers review weekly, and responsive classroom techniques to help build that strong community through morning meetings. And then we've been really consistent with our interventions this school year. So now really, this is the fun part. So our special recognitions. Oh, yes, you sure can. All right, so with our student spotlight, I would like to highlight our social justice advocate, Hessler Perez. He's a 5th grader. He is a 5th grader at Greenbrier Elementary, and lack for a better word, he's just a pretty cool dude. He is focused on doing what will help everyone. He always makes sure everyone is included, no matter who they are. He goes out of his way to help others in the classroom. He's also a junior librarian, a member of our Wilderness Club, and volunteers on Saturdays at a local food pantry. It is an honor to highlight Hessler Perez. And Hessler will be highlighting you on the Great Grizzly show here soon, my friend. All right. Our parent recognitions go to Elise Boyles and Michael Boyer, and this is why. Elise couldn't make it, but she works with our small groups of students on math skills, on problem solving. She donates snacks and basically whatever else is needed on a daily basis. She encourages students to do their best and volunteers to help out with academic stations in some classrooms. Now, Michael, in October, he asked if he could start a second robotics team. And there were a few kids that wanted to join our initial club that were happy to get a chance to join one. Michael went above and beyond with his crew. He took 5th graders who had no idea what they were getting into, created a team that developed a genuine love for robotics. He allowed them to make mistakes and made sure that they learned from them. He was adamant and the students were in charge when it came to the construction and programming of their robots. Michael was there for support, and the team really took ownership of the process. He found grants to help get the team money to purchase some more equipment and continues to do so. He is an asset to our robotics team and our school. So Michael, come on up. All right, and our community partners, we partnered with the Sanctuary Church on numerous occasions. They've helped create the best back-to-school kickoff we have had in years. Their church has given countless donations through coats, food, monetary, anything that will help feed the spirit of the students, but also our staff. They've supported our staff on countless occasions. And for this reason and so many more, I want to recognize our community partner, Katie and Jack Jake Hirsch from the sanctuary.
Thank you so much. Very great. Thank you so much. Thank you. Oh.
All right, that is all I have. Thank you so much for allowing us to highlight our school today.
Thank you. Next, we will have our superintendent's announcements. Dr. Woods.
Thank you very much, President George Davis. We have some exciting announcements coming up if you want to hang tight for a few more minutes. But a few announcements for the board this evening. First, we have a comprehensive construction project report from Mr. Boots for you to review. The legislative updates along with our working document on the implications of the legislative session to Washington Township specifically by each department and division. Also, you heard about the Black History Month program at Greenbrier. I included the link for you tonight to that video. Do not miss it. It is phenomenal. So congratulations once again, Greenbrier. And we also have our preliminary results for iRead Spring. So you'll see some analysis from teaching and learning in there. You will have a comprehensive review of those results during our quality assurance reviews per our district strategic plan in just a couple of months. And last but certainly not least, we have a kudos to teachers who are listed on the attachment for you in your board docs who completed a DOE certification that we're proud of them for going above and beyond. And that's all I have.
Board, any questions? Thank you, Dr. Woodson. Next, we will have comments from the public. Just a few reminders. Total public comments may not exceed 21 minutes. Each person is limited to 3 minutes. No person may speak on the same topic more than once unless others have had their opportunity to speak. And the following comments are not allowed: harassing, personally directed at staff or students, obscene, or irrelevant. Any comments from the public? Seeing none, we will move on to our consent agenda. Dr. Taylor.
Good evening, President George Davis, Dr. Woodson, members of the board. I recommend that you approve the consent agenda for this evening. The consent agenda includes approval of the minutes of the March 13th, 2024 board meeting and the memorandum of the March 14th, 2024 executive session. Approval of one payroll calculation summary report, a claims docket in the amount of $6,955,928.09, a human resources report containing for classified personnel, 14 new hires as indicated by numbers 209 through 222, 6 resignations indicated by numbers 133 through 138, 2 terminations, numbers 26 and 27, and for certified personnel, 1 new appointment for the school year 2024-2025, 3 resignations, numbers 97 through 99, 3 transfers, 14, 15, and 16, and then 2 maternity, child rearing adoptions for 20 and 21. There are no competitive grants to present for the board's approval. There are no grants, gifts, or donations to present for the board's approval either. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions the board may have.
If there are no questions, Madam President, I move we approve the consent agenda as presented by Dr. Taylor.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 4-0.
Thank you. Before we move forward, I'd like to kick it over to Dr. Kaiser for an announcement.
Thank you, Dr. Taylor. Dr. Woodson, President George Davis, and members of the board, through your approval of the consent agenda this evening, you approved the hiring of several key leaders in Washington Township. And Dr. Woodson and I wanted to take a moment to highlight these fine educators. Can I have Alex Brownell step to join Dr. Woodson at this time? Alex Brownell joined the Washington Township staff as Assistant Secondary Curriculum Coordinator in 2022, following extensive experience teaching high school science in St. Louis and Wentzville, Missouri, and Noblesville and Zionsville schools here in Indianapolis. Recently, she joined the staff at North Central High School as interim assistant principal, and I am pleased to share that she will transition into this position permanently for the 2024-2025 school year. Ms. Brownell received both her Bachelor of Arts in Biology and her Master's of Arts in Teaching from Truman State University, and her administrative licensure in educational leadership from Indiana University. We, along with the North Central staff joining us here tonight, are pleased to see her bring her extensive high school experience to North Central as an ongoing member of the administrative team. Congratulations, Alex. This time, if I could have Mr. Brian Funk join Dr. Woodson at this time. I am equally excited to present a very familiar face to the board tonight as the Director of Career and Continuing Education for Washington Township for the 24-25 school year. Brian Funk has served as the Assistant Director of Career and Technical Education at the J. Everett Light Career Center for the last 17 years. Brian began his career as an industrial tech teacher at Astronaut High School in Florida before relocating to Indianapolis and serving as a teacher, a department chair, and a dean in Lawrence Township Schools. Through his 17 years of service in MSDWT, Brian has demonstrated an aptitude for leadership and a dedication to his students that will make him an excellent director. As Brian worked through the extensive application and interview process, it became clear to all that J. Everett Light and Washington Township adult education will continue to prosper under his leadership. Brian received both his Bachelor of Science and his CTE Director's License from Ball State University and his Master's of Education and Principal's Licensure through Indiana Wesleyan University. And I'm pleased, along with our JEL adult education staff who are here this evening, to welcome him as our Director of Career and Continuing Education beginning in July. Congratulations.
Very obvious.
Dr. Thorpe, would you please make your way up to the front with Dr. Woodson? As the board knows, education at the middle level and middle schools are a very unique group of students to work with. Based upon this, our search for a new director of teaching and learning for the middle level in Washington Township was very focused on finding a director with significant experience at the middle level. I am very pleased to report that we were able to locate a candidate who not only meets but exceeds those expectations. Over the course of her career, Dr. Crystal Murph Thorpe has served in Marion County as a high school English teacher, a middle school assistant principal, and an assistant principal at a 9th grade center. For the last 17 years, she has served as the principal of Fishers Junior High School in Hamilton Southeastern Schools. In addition to her role as principal, Dr. Thorpe also serves as an adjunct professor of education, a principal in residence, and is the current president of the Indiana Association of School Principals. Dr. Thorpe completed her bachelor's degree in secondary education at Indiana University, her master's in educational administration at Butler University, and her PhD at Indiana State University. At this time, I'm pleased, along with our middle school principals, Mr. Pitcock, Mr. Hakeem, and Mr. Tutton, to welcome her to the Washington Township family as our next Director of Teaching and Learning for grades 6 through 8. Congratulations, Dr. Thorpe. Dr. Seaver, if you would join Dr. Woodson up front. Let's go. Dr. Rachel Seaver joined Washington Township in 2019 as the English as a New Language Coordinator district-wide. In July of 2023, Rachel transitioned into the role of Interim Director of Teaching and Learning for 9 through 12 in Washington Township. And by your action a few moments ago, you approved her transition into this role permanently beginning with the 24-25 school year. Prior to coming to Washington Township, Dr. Seaver served as a middle school teacher, a middle school media specialist, an English department chair, and a supervisor of learning in Carmel Clay schools. Additionally, she has served as an adjunct professor at both Butler University and IU Indianapolis. Dr. Seaver received her Bachelor of Science in Elementary Education at Eastern Illinois University, who are, by the way, the Panthers, just saying. Her Master's of Arts in Language Education and her doctoral degree from IUPUI, and her Educational Specialist degree in District Level Administration from the American College of Education. At this time, I am pleased, along with our members of our North Central staff, True North staff, and JEL staff, to welcome her as she transitions into her permanent placement as the Director of Teaching and Learning 9-12 for 24-25 in July. Congratulations, Dr. Thank you, Dr. Woodson and members of the board.
Thank you, Doctors Taylor and Kaiser. While our agenda is really short this evening, if you would like to escape, this is your moment. The first time I saw the kids do that, I was like, what are you doing here?
We're being quiet. Only way we've been taught.
Do that. Okay, so for our first action item, we have the approval of the resolution authorizing suit against social media companies. Mr. Mays.
Dr. Whitson, members of the board, the resolution that you have before you that I am bringing to you is similar to what we saw with the Jewel matter and the vaping lawsuit that the district joined earlier. And so by approving this resolution, the district would approve joining class action litigation that has commenced and joining other school districts around our state as well as around our country in pursuing an action against various social media companies under similar theories that were presented in the vaping lawsuit and tying harms that we face as a school district, mental health, social fallout from what goes on in social media in the lives of our youth to the lack of controls that social media companies have. And so we would join that class action lawsuit with the approval of this resolution with the accompanying engagement letter for the national class action law firm. Any questions?
Board, any questions? Ms. North Kruger?
So if we approve the resolution, then how is this going to move forward? What do you anticipate? What's the trajectory of this?
Yeah, presently so the next step would be we would be listed as an additional name, an additional plaintiff in the class action lawsuits that are pending, both presently venued out in California, both in federal court and in state court. As far as where the litigation goes from there, there will be some fact gathering that they will ask us to do, similar to what we did the last time in the Jewel lawsuit, to gain more information about our district. And then also we will sit back and wait for some key court rulings on some legal challenges to the legal theories that have been presented. Unlike the Jewel lawsuit, these claims face significant headwinds from some federal laws that protect these technology companies as platforms. And the idea is that they're platforms, they're not the ones speaking, they're making the ability of people to speak, but they themselves are not speaking. And so there's a federal law called Section 230 that offers some immunity. That's going to be a significant headwind in this, but there's theories to get around that that are being tested, and those right now are being litigated in the courts, and we'll sit back and wait. It may be a period of time, 1 year, maybe 2, before we have some rulings on that. But that's the next step, some fact gathering, and then waiting for those key decisions.
If there are no further questions, I move that we approve the resolution authorizing suit against social media companies as presented by.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 4-0.
Thank you very much.
Next, we have the approval of the second reading and adoption of policies B125, B150, B175, B200, B225, B250, C100, C125, C575, and C600. Mrs.
Thank you, Madam President. Dr. Woods and members of the board, as indicated, this is our second reading of the policies that were just mentioned. And I'll just give a slight review of what those titles are. There have been no changes since the last reading, but they are, of course, policy B125, duties of the school board, policy B150, organizational meetings, board of finance and committees, policy B175, functions, policy B200, memberships, policy B225, board meetings, policy B250, school board member ethics, policy C100, entrance requirements, policy C125, and admission to the district, legal settlement, policy C575, homework, and policy C600, withdrawal from high school. So these, as a reminder, these replace several of our current policies and will be posted on our district's website under board policies instead of the previous link that went to a Neola site on our board docs. So just a reminder that as we approve these new revised policies, that they will be on our Washington Township's website. And then after a conclusion of all these that we are revising, then we'll discontinue the previous site since these are the newly adopted policies. So I would ask the board for approval at this time and be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions, Mr. Turner?
Sorry, I do have one.
Sure.
B225 board meetings. And I see the comments you have about this, the first paragraph about, or second paragraph about board meetings will be streamed live. Is that coming out? Is that staying because it says will be?
The legal requirement that they are streamed is not until 2025, I believe.
It will
So
be?
that's maybe why it says will
Correct.
be.
It
We're
will
not
be down the
required
road.
yet.
Mhm.
Okay.
And we could clarify it if you'd like to, and then revise it at that time, or we can leave as is.
We are just already compliant. You're live right now.
Where's the camera? Oh, in the corner.
Yes.
Okay. We lost all the other equipment. I thought we
Right.
stopped. We kind of upgraded our technology.
That's right.
Sorry.
Oh,
Okay,
that's
never
okay.
mind. Never mind.
And that was because of the law. We were going to have to be compliant anyway. So
Okay.
thanks
nope, I
to
thought
Mr.
we
Witt.
stopped.
So during renovations, then we went ahead and
Ah,
did that.
Board
Yes.
members not informed. Never mind, I'm good.
That's okay. Thank you.
Leave it as is.
Any further questions?
No.
If there are no more questions, I move that we approve the second reading and that we adopt the new policies B125, B150, B175, B200, B225, B250, C100, C125, C575, and C600 as presented by Mrs. Smith.
I'll second.
It's been moved and properly second. Any discussion?
I've said this before and I'll say this again. There are two board members who are on the committee that actually like goes through and reviews all these with Mrs. Smith. And I just want to assure people, because I'm up here just spewing out numbers like this. I promise to the public and to my fellow board members and everybody else, I actually have read and vetted these and they have been, because I know these in particular were just throwing out these numbers. It's like, do they even know what they're voting on? I want to assure people that I personally have been very involved in going through these. So just for the record. Thank you.
Absolutely. And then these are also vetted by the particular administrators or whatever throughout the district that it might pertain to also. So on both sides, we do that.
And I'll probably say that every time we do.
That's fine. It's good. Reminder.
All those in favor?
I,
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 4-0. Thank you, Mrs. Smith. Next, we have approval of the contract with Amplify for our 6-year implementation of the Amplify CKLA curriculum. Mr. Blom, Mrs. Boble, and Ms. Denning.
Good evening, President George Davis, Dr. Woodson, members of the board. We come to you this evening seeking approval for our new literacy curriculum and the contract to purchase materials, online access, and professional development. Tonight, I'm joined by Rose Boble, our elementary curriculum coordinator, and Rolene Demings, one of our district lead coaches. Thank you. As we have previously shared, our schools began to recognize several years ago that our current reading curriculum was not meeting the needs of many of our learners. In some of our schools, we began at that time deviating from the curriculum, supplementing, and even searching for other options for supporting our students. At the same time, more information was coming out that reinforced our concerns that some of the fundamental practices necessary for most children to learn to read were being neglected by that particular program. 2 years ago, we began formally making a shift back towards the science of reading, hiring Rose, with a rich background in early literacy was part of that shift. She and Rolene will share more about that and more about what's happening in our district in just a minute. What's on the screen now is new legislation that was passed last spring by the state of Indiana requiring school districts to adopt a reading curriculum based upon the science of reading for the start of the 2024-2025 school year. Ms. Demings is going to share a quick overview of the science of reading, and Ms. Boble will talk about what has been happening specifically in our school district.
Madam President, Dr. Woodson, members of the board. For 50 years, highly respected leaders in the fields of psychology, linguistics, neuroscience, and education have documented evidence supporting the science of reading. This research brings to light how teachers can prepare themselves to help struggling readers achieve success. The 5 pillars of reading instruction were created by the National Reading Panel. They identified these 5 key concepts of every effective reading instruction program. These 5 areas, phonemic awareness, phonics, fluency, vocabulary, and comprehension, are key components to effective facilitation. Our MSDWT family, our staff, our family, community members, they often reference the research behind the science of reading. These 2 visuals are ones that you may have seen before. They are backed by 2 leaders in these fields, psychologists Goff and Tunmer and Dr. Hollis Scarborough. On your left, you'll see Scarborough's reading rope. With this, language comprehension and all the components of that, linked with word recognition together create skilled reading to achieve reading comprehension. On your right, you'll see the simple view of reading, which looks at decoding linguistic comprehension. Those together also create reading comprehension. And the reason it looks like kind of like a math equation is because it's been said that when one of these areas are weak, then it's 3 times harder for students.
Thank you, Rolene, for the brief overview into the body of research that is the science of reading. As we know as a district, this shift towards a more structured literacy approach not only will take time, training, but also reflection. As a district literacy team, we know that we needed a vision moving forward. So as a collaborative team with our building literacy coaches and admin, we created the Washington Township District Literacy Vision that we believe an effective, equitable, and affirming literacy program is aligned to the science of reading, where grade level standards are explicitly taught to mastery using scaffolds and differentiation strategies to ensure all students become proficient readers and writers. Taking a glance at how Washington Township has prepared for these shifts, we started our work in the fall of 2022, where we began training and studying the science of reading, how it looks and what it is. Both of our district and literacy and building literacy coaches supported teachers in understanding these shifts and analyzed our current instructional practices and data. Various sessions from internal and external presenters were offered at our Elevate Summer Conference in 2023, as well as piloting multiple curricular programs during the 23-24 school year. In addition, Washington Township also acquired a $450,000 IDOE Science of Reading grant. This grant is allowing us to train a group of teachers, administrators, and coaches in letters. We will attend multiple Science of Reading conferences in order to get the real life experience from not only researchers, but colleagues in our field, and then also putting a portion towards our curricular materials. So when we look at our curriculum adoption, we've gone through an extensive process, both of our teams at the district and building level. We've done thorough research. We've comprised committees full of teachers, instructional coaches, and administrators to review multiple options. We held a curriculum open house for all stakeholders to provide feedback, and we provided samples of the final 2 options for all elementary teachers to review during the March e-learning day. From this, we also curated surveys from not only our staff, but also our stakeholders. From our surveys, 77 respondents reviewed CKLA, and 81% of those recommended the curriculum. From our stakeholder survey, 83% recommended CKLA. With this, we are here to ask approval of purchasing Amplify CKLA as the best option to serve all students within Washington Township elementary buildings. Amplify CKLA provides a comprehensive package of professional development for all teachers, common assessments to gauge where students are performing, data analysis to drive daily instruction, and continuity between each of our 8 elementary buildings. That way we ensure all students get a guaranteed and viable curriculum. Amplify CKLA provides explicit phonics instruction so we can target our youngest learners to get reading on grade level by 3rd grade. Amplify CKLA and Washington Township will also provide intentional and ongoing coaching to ensure all teachers receive continued support in growing in their understanding of teaching all students to read.
So we believe we've laid the foundation for a smooth rollout for the new curriculum, and tonight we ask for approval for our 6-year contract with Amplify CKLA in the amount of $1,684,061.92. With that, we will answer any questions you have.
Ms. Fry.
First of all, I'm sorry, thanks for the contract. Is that total per year or?
That is the total for the 6-year contract.
And then one thing I didn't see, I'm just curious about the 6 years. Is that kind of a standard curriculum contract? I guess it just comes into my mind like, and I know you need several years to really fully implement, but what if we're in like year 3 or 4 and we're like,
So 6 years traditionally had been the cycle, and that was really kind of a statewide, and it had to do with student textbook fees coming in. And so with the shift in funding, we did take a hard look at, would it be better to go a different approach? We felt, and we were open to that. However, balancing being fiscally responsible, and then the more we research this and talk to other districts that have implemented within the state of Indiana and in other states, we felt strongly that one, the shift was going to take a couple of years to really make sure that we were doing this at a high level. And then if we started to feel like we were going to maybe go a different direction, we would want to do our due diligence in making sure that we had all of the data and we took our time in making a change.
Thank you. A couple more questions, but before I ask them, I do want to say, I appreciated the 14-page report that was provided to us. Thank you for that. I thought it was exceptionally well done. It answered tons of my questions, and made me feel much more confident voting on this. Although for the record, I did talk to other people outside of just what you gave us, but I want to commend you for that.
A lot of kudos to Rolene for putting all of that together, because there was
really.
a lot of information that we wanted to share for you.
I mean, I haven't been on the board that long, but I'll say this is probably, of everything we've seen, done, reviewed, approved, the most where I was like, oh, like this is, they gave me what I wanted. I feel confident. I don't feel skeptical. I don't feel like I need to go digging. So anyway, all that said, my next couple questions, maybe I just missed them in the report, but I don't think I did. I noticed in the presentation you mentioned under resources and professional development, you mentioned piloting multiple programs during this school year. Can you tell me more about that? Because I didn't see any further details on that. Exactly what and how did we pilot?
I'll let you jump in. You want to take it? Okay.
So I will go back to your first question as well about the 6-year cycle. In that 6 years, we do have multiple checkpoints throughout the 6 years to make sure that what we are implementing is working based on data, based on teacher feedback, based on coach feedback. So within this last cycle, 6 years, we noticed midway through that we weren't seeing our data trending upward like we were intending. We knew that we needed some change. So we started a comprehensive gap analysis. And so with that, when we're looking at each of the programs, we will make sure that we're not only on the right path, but staying on that path. And then will you repeat your question for
Oh, just about
piloting?
You mentioned piloting
Mhm.
things, but I didn't see any further details of that. Did you run pilots of any of these? And where?
Yes. So as far as piloting from the last comprehensive cycle, we noticed that there were multiple options out on the table. And then we ultimately went off of DOE's guidance from their approved vetted list. But from that list, we piloted HMH in reading at Crooked Creek this past year. And then we also piloted in 4 buildings plus 3rd grade at another building, Foundations, Wilson Foundations, which was a part of another curricular program that we were looking at. Because they did have that explicit phonics instruction portion that we knew that we were lacking based on our iRead 3 scores.
So we haven't specifically piloted CKLA though.
We have not piloted this as a complete program, no.
And what's the other? Oh, this just popped into my head as we were going through this. I'm going back to your reading rope. Great image. And this just made me think of it. I noticed in particular, like under comprehension, language structures, syntax, semantics, etc. My question is, with CKLA, might we see a return to a little more grammar education, or am I just old fashioned and you're like, no?
Great question. If you've looked at the research body back to the 1980s where the National Reading Panel was created, you'll see that we are back kind of in the shift of phonics programs. The difference between that and teaching grammar in isolation, like we once did, or once how I was taught to read, we will not only see grammar and phonics, more emphasis on those, but it's also the other strands of the rope. So we'll notice that we won't spend a whole day of ELA block only doing grammar or only doing phonics. It's important that we are touching all of those pieces of the rope. But yes, you'll see more embedded grammar. We won't see it as much in isolation, but you'll also see it embedded within writing instruction as well.
But in general, you think this transition will see more of kids actually knowing things like verbs and nouns and like subjects and objects?
Absolutely. Absolutely. You'll see a little bit more of that sentence digraphing, but also students knowing why certain vowel teams say different things, why we're using different spelling, why the spelling patterns.
Did you just say sentence diagramming?
Did.
God, a woman after my own heart.
Well, there won't, let me be clear, there won't be any of that where you're writing the sentence 12 times and just for that practice. But the rationale, the why behind about how we break apart words is important. And that's what CKLA helps teachers understand the art of how to break down words, how to read them, how to write them.
Great, that's all I have. Thank you so much.
Mrs. Worth Kruger?
Could you explain or just give us a picture what a child's experience in the classroom has been versus what the child's experience will be with this new curriculum? Just so I'm just trying to make sure that I understand the differentiation between them.
Absolutely. So I'm going to throw out the word reading wars. There are kind of two sides to the reading wars: balanced literacy and structured literacy. Balanced literacy, which we were formerly, I would say, in our classrooms with our units of study, was very strong on balanced literacy, where we are touching and dabbling on each of those components of the reading rope, but we're not explicitly teaching them. So we're using things like, okay, boys and girls, let's put on our guessing lips and think, what does that first letter of the word say? And we're making guesses. We're using the pictures, we're using context clues as the first strategy when we're looking at learning. So we're looking at a word and we're really making guesses. Does it make sense? Let's cover it up and see what the rest of the sentence makes instead. So that's kind of balanced literacy when you look at the phonics portion. When you look at the phonics portion of a structured literacy approach, instead of making those educated guesses or those context clues, we're actually coming out and saying this beginning, blend, the CR says cur. This is why. So we're explicitly stating why different vowel patterns, why different letters, why different phonemes state what they say when they're encoding words. That is one of the biggest changes between balanced and structured literacy, where the science of reading, it takes both sides. So there's no longer a dichotomy between the two. We're really looking at the overall holistic approach of how we teach a student to read. It's very important that we explicitly teach them what this means and why, but also that they can use it and they can use it during comprehension and be able to understand what they're reading.
Just a quick follow-up. What do we know about the results that CKLA gets? I mean, we're looking for improved results in our testing, et cetera. So what do we know about that particular curriculum that will help get us there?
So throughout our curriculum adoption, we definitely asked for neighboring schools data, but also schools across the country that look like Washington Township, looking at their data, looking at what increases they had from year 1, 2, 3, 4, moving forward. So that the data trends were the first option. The second one is just the research backed. So looking at all of the components, making sure that each component on Scarborough's reading rope was represented accurately, but also giving teachers the tools that they need to understand how teaching reading it might be different than they learn to read as well.
Thank you.
So several school districts around ours that have implemented, whether this was year 1 or had implemented in the past, explicitly shared that they felt like their positive trends in reading were due to the implementation of the program. I will say in general, science of reading districts that we've talked to, regardless of what they adopted, felt like this approach was meeting the needs of more students and they had younger students being more successful reading. I do want to go back to the piloting question just because this is a big investment. And I feel like when you say out loud, like we haven't piloted, that sounds crazy, but typically our timeline for going through a literacy or a math or one of the big curricular areas would be a 2-year process of a comprehensive needs assessment and looking at trends and surveys. And because of the way the legislation rolled out, we already sensed this was happening, but in our timeline, we had a shorter period of time. And so we felt like the balance of maintaining what we were doing in buildings where it was going well. We did have the one program at Crooked Creek where the company was very generous in what they were able to give us in order to do a full adoption. We were hesitant to go in isolation in different buildings because we didn't want to lose ground because we're also working towards the state's goal of 95% pass rate for iRead 3. So we kind of went back and forth with the companies and within our own decision making on whether we would do a large pilot or try to do a large pilot in this first year. But we felt like, and I feel more confirmed now that more affirmed that with some of the districts around us that have already implemented, we've been able to visit the other program that was one of the final two. We spent time visiting and meeting with administrators and looking at their data, and that helped guide us towards this decision.
Remind me, the epidemiologist in me just came out. Remind me of the checkpoints, like when we start evaluating this. Is it after a full year and we have another iRead under our belt? Is it report card day?
Yeah, and it'll be a
how are we-
variety of data, qualitative and quantitative, really. So what you just described for sure, when we get our data back, and obviously, the first couple of assessments, we anticipate at times they will talk about, is there going to be an implementation dip? We saw with our math curriculum that there was not. Right out of the gate from year one, we started to see things trend in the right way. And we've talked a lot as a curriculum team about why we think that was with our alignment in every building, the support we had from all of our administrators, our strong instructional coaches. And we have those in place to replicate that. So we're certainly confident that we will see some early wins. But yes, as we get through iLearn, certainly as we get into iRead, that will be a great chance for us to kind of look back and see. But we'll be getting feedback. As you know, we're so blessed to have instructional coaches in all of our buildings. They meet monthly. And so this will be a regular part. Our focus next year at elementary, our professional development is all going to be centered around, obviously, the rollout of the literacy program. So we'll be getting qualitative data right out of the gate of like, what do we need? What kind of support do we want? And then certainly each time we take an assessment, we'll be tracking that by grade level, by subgroup, by school. Where are things going well? How do we need to replicate that? And then I had another thought that I'll get to in a second.
Got it. I speak Tim Blom. I will entertain a motion if there are no further questions.
I move that we approve the contract with Amplify for our 6-year implementation of the Amplify CKLA curriculum as presented by Mr. Blom, Mrs. Bobal, and Ms. Demings.
I'll second.
It's been, excuse me, it's been moved and properly second. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 4-0.
Thank you all very, very much.
And for our final agenda item, we have the approval of the 2020 capital construction project change orders. Mr. Boots.
Thank you, Madam President. Good evening, Dr. Woodson and members of the board. I am here this evening requesting approval of 3 individual change orders on 3 separate projects. Those change orders are change order number IN 21002-022 to Smoot Construction for the renovation at CEC ELC project. Change order number 006 to Shield Sexton Harmon Joint Venture for renovation of Fox Hill Elementary School. And change order number 004 to Temperature Control Services for renovation at Greenbrier Elementary School. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Board, any questions?
No, if there are no further questions, Madam President, I move we approve the 2020 capital construction project change orders as presented by Mr. Boots.
It's been moved and properly second. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 4-0.
Thank you.
Anything else for the good of the order?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.